It's been kind of a frustrating year, I guess. Kind of last year for police officers, obviously, there were 5 police officer shooting deaths that, kind of rocked all of Illinois. And it was all over Illinois, not just in central Illinois or whatnot. And then you have this incident that happens on Saturday. What's kind of going through your head as a police chief, and maybe you've talked to other police chiefs as well, what's going through their heads as well?
So as a police chief, one of my concerns, and I know the concerns of other police chiefs, not just in the state of Illinois, but around the country, is as violent crime surges, the likelihood that our officers will have encounters that could put their lives at risk greatly increases as well. So the concern for us is that our officers are going to be in these situations where it's a deadly force situation, and it could end badly on many levels, and so that's concerning to us. It's concerning for our communities.
Yeah. So that leads me kind of to my second question. So obviously there's been a lot of violence recently, just in general. But some of these offenders, I guess the best way to call them, or whatever, have also kind of started to lash back towards police. And how, as you said, you've been with the department for 27 years. 25, sorry. Thank you for correcting me. You've probably been, I'm assuming you've been out on the field and whatnot. How does that make you feel? Just kind of like that nerve. I know you just kind of mentioned it a little bit, but being someone that's been out there and stuff like that, what kind of goes through your head now?
So having, worked on the street and worked in situations where, it can get, pretty hairy pretty quickly. It can be scary out there for officers. I'm not afraid to sit here and say that, officers can be scared out there on the street. When their lives are on the line, that's not an enjoyable experience. So when we get put into a position where we seem to be at today, where that violence against police officers is increasing, that just makes it even more real for us as we go out and do our jobs. And I hope that the communities that we serve recognize and understand that, and see the dedication that these officers have, and know that that's our role, that's our purpose, is to keep our community safe. And sometimes that can be at a great cost to the officers and the departments themselves.
Yeah, that was very well said.
If I could jump in on that one just real quick,
Yeah.
And you can continue to look at Brad while we're
Okay.
answering this, but you said officers can be scared out there. And in the past year especially, we've been hearing a lot about the mentality and the perception of officers and these tangible but kind of intangible things. How much does that affect an officer on the job? How much does that mentality change the way they can go about it? How does that alter the way they can go about their job in ways that maybe they don't even pick up?
I'm trying to wrap my head around your question.
I can try to simplify it a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. What is it?
That mentality aspect of it, having the right mentality to be
Okay.
on the streets, on the beat.
Okay.
When you don't have that, how does that affect your ability to do the job as
Okay.
a police officer?
So, one of the most difficult things about being a police officer is making sure your mindset is right for that given situation. Not every situation is a deadly situation. However, as we've seen in the last month, even the most routine situations can turn deadly for the police officers. So they have to approach each scenario keeping in mind that this could go very bad for them, but also keeping in mind they have to have a positive interaction with the public as well. They can't treat every encounter as if it's a deadly encounter, but yet they have to understand that it could be. And so that's a hard balance for police officers to accomplish. And I don't think the general public understands how difficult that can be. And the officers have to have that mindset. They have to have the guardian mindset when it's the time to be the guardian, and they've got to have that warrior mindset when it's time to be a warrior.
Yeah, I'm gonna just make it so that it varies at Michelle a little bit. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just part of being by myself, I guess. Luckily I have him too to help me get more. But that leads me into my next question, actually. So some of our reporters, I don't know if Cole did this or not, but I know when I was kind of transitioning from videographer to reporter, we did this police training thing over here, actually, not too far down the road.
The simulator.
Yeah, and there was a former Champaign police officer there that we were talking to. He said there's been times where it's like, you know, you feel like you have to be extra careful. You know, there's been times where he probably should have used more force than what he was, but you know that when you're a police officer, you're kind of going through your head, you know, do I need to do this? What do I need to do? You know, kind of deal. Have you seen that more? You know, the I don't want to do this as because of backlash or something of that sort kind of deal.
So I think that the position, maybe a decent way to answer this question, the position that the officers are in right now and the climate that police officers across the nation are under is they could fear potential repercussions of their actions in a given situation, and that could cause them to pause or to delay action that's necessary, whatever that may be in a given situation. That can be, you know, it can be stressful on not just the officers, but the organization and the community as well, because if the officers hesitate to act when they should act, that outcome can be much worse than it would have been had they just acted the way that they know they should have in the beginning. It's a very difficult concept to really grasp and understand unless you've been in the shoes of a police officer, unless you've been in a simulator or have some simple understanding of how that works. Because sometimes the best resolution or the best way to get to the most peaceful resolution is quick action. And by even that slight second of a pause, that could make the whole situation get even worse. And that's a byproduct of the climate that we're in, where officers might be hesitating when they shouldn't.
Right, yeah, and that was very well answered. That's exactly what I was trying to get at. Yeah, and then so obviously with this violence towards police officers, kind of more specifically, and violence in general, as a police chief, what are some steps you're kind of trying to take to help prevent that or help officers kind of get through? Obviously, we had the situation earlier this week or on Saturday. You know, how are you kind of trying to help them get through that, or kind of help navigate through this kind of stuff?
So, as we move forward in a position in policing where it does appear that violence is on the rise against police officers, and it's not just locally, this is a nationwide issue. It's incumbent upon police departments in our communities to do a couple of things. One, the communities need to demand accountability to the offenders. The community needs to make their voice heard that these offenders need to be held accountable. And to those that are responsible for that, hold them accountable. And then on the police department side, we need to address this through training, through mental health training and mental health aspects that come along with that, and the training that we give the officers to adapt to the situation that we're in so they can still operate safely and serve their communities like they swore to do.
Awesome. And then, my next question is kind of vague, and I understand if you don't necessarily have an exact answer for this, but, what do you think, is kind of causing this? It doesn't seem like it's, specifically targeted all the time towards police officers. That's not like what this person is going to do. It doesn't seem like that anyways. What are some things that you might think is causing this reaction?
So I think that's it's a simple question that has a very complex answer.
Right.
So I can't point to one given thing that is causing it. I think that there are several issues causing it. You have a situation where the violent crime is on the rise in general, and that can be caused by a variety of different issues, right? You have root cause issues that are there. You have a pandemic that's going on that's causing issues there. And then we have a climate where we seem to be less inclined to hold accountable serious offenders. Why that is, I don't know. I don't understand why there's any debate on that. But there seems to be, and I think that emboldens those who do choose to pick violence as their path. And it's unfortunate, and until I think the communities demand accountability from their legislators and they demand accountability from those who make those decisions when those offenders are brought forward, we're in for a long haul. And I hope that's not the case. I really do. I know police departments are working hard every day to try to address it on their level, but we cannot do it alone. And that's the part that's frustrating on police departments. I think that the focus seems to be on police departments to solve this problem. And that this problem is much, much larger than police departments. And if we don't come off of that mentality, it's going to be a difficult ride.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I know this is kind of a rough interview to kind of start things off, but I really appreciate doing this, and
Yeah.
it's very insightful to get kind of the police officer aspect of all this kind of stuff going on. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
and
no problem.
look forward to hopefully talking to you, not on this kind of stuff later.
Yeah, me too.
Brad, if you're done, I would
Yeah.
have a few follow-ups. Do you feel like there is a growing lack of disrespect for the authority police officers have, and that's what's leading to these incidents, this growing number of incidents, or do you think this is just climbing with the rate of violent crime that we're seeing in general?
So I think that there's a growing lack of respect for authority in general. You see that in the schools. You're seeing it in workplaces. You see it in businesses where how customers are acting. Look at what's happening in planes nowadays, and I think that growing sentiment and lack of respect in general is feeding into this whole problem. So again, I think as a society, until we put our foot down and say, this isn't the way we want to be, and we need to hold those people who do choose to take that path accountable, it's going to be difficult for us as we move forward.
Do you think that's fixed with tougher punishments, or do there need to be fixes made on the front end, or is it both?
So I think that the answer to that question is both, and there's a lot of different things. I fully support addressing and funding root cause issues to crime and the situations that lead to crime in our society. 100% I support that. But at the same time, I support serious accountability to violent and repeat offenders. And that seems to be where we're losing in this conversation. We're only focusing now on the front end and not paying equal attention on the back end. Whereas maybe previously we were paying too much attention to the back end and focusing on the accountability side and lacking that focus on the front side. Until you start doing both, and until the community comes together and works together on the solutions, it's going to be difficult. Again, kind of going to, if each group is doing their own thing, and then each group or the community in general points to one figure, whether that's the police department or an organization or the city in and of itself, that's not how this problem gets solved. The community has to do it together, and there has to be a multifaceted approach.
I want to also get more specific to the video that was released today and this incident in general. When you saw that video, I mean, we're talking inches away from having a totally different conversation. What is that like for you as the chief to have to watch a video like that and watch one of your officers be shot?
So this video did several things to not just to me, but to the command staff that watched this video. Initially what we saw one shot being fired, and we saw our officer hit, and we saw our officer act in such a brave way to continue and stay in that fight. The other part of that is as this case has come together and we had certain facts come out, such as the fact that it was a gun converted to a fully auto with a large capacity magazine, and that the gun jammed after the first round. Had that not happened, we might be having a very different conversation. So reality sets in, and the what ifs start to occur, right? So as a police chief, it's concerning to me, personally. It's concerning to me in an organizational level as well. But I know that the men and women in the Decatur Police Department and police officers across this state and country understand that we've got a duty to fulfill. We have to stay in the fight, and that's what we'll do.
For the about a minute in that video, as long as that video went, Officer Vale was staying alert. She was communicating. I was wondering, after being transported to the hospital, at what point did you get to talk with her, and what was her mentality? What was she saying if you did have that conversation?
So I don't know that I'll go into some of those private parts, things like that. But what I will say is, you know, I did go to the hospital and speak with her at the hospital when she was receiving care, and even at that point, she was a true warrior, and I look forward to her full recovery.
I watched that video and I know exactly what you're talking about. She stays in the fight. She says she got hit by something, and she just continues to say the direction to go. She's like, "You can bring a K9 unit. It'll help. You'll get there." To see that perseverance and the dedication to the duty that she held as an officer, does that sort of not restore, but reinforce the faith you have in this profession?
Yeah. So her ability after what had happened and what she had encountered, her ability to stay in that fight, that's inspirational to me. That's inspirational to all officers that'll watch that video. That's one of the things that we train and teach. Things can go bad really fast. Stay in the fight. That's the best way for you to survive. That's the best way for us to move forward. You have to stay in the fight. And she did exactly that, and I'm incredibly proud of her for doing it.
The video posted to Facebook today, what do you want the takeaway to be when people watch it?
The takeaway that I'd like to see the public, or what I'd like to see the public take away from that video is just to know how quickly things can turn deadly for an officer simply doing a traffic stop. And that's what they'll see today when they watch this video.
All right, that's all the questions I have.
All right.
Okay.
Well, if you don't mind, after I get the camera or the mic back, if I just kind of get some shots.